Hey, this is Bram with 45 Creations. We are here today in Westfield, Indiana with my buddy John Souki at his new private studio. Hello, John. How
Hello,
are you?
Graham. How are you?
Welcome to Risky Stays, where we set up cameras anywhere we can find a nice warm place to be inside. No.
It is nice and cozy in here.
Yeah. But you just got back from all kinds of traveling and stuff. So let's just open this up with telling people who you are, what you do music-wise, and all your creative stuff.
Sure. So yeah, my name is John Souki. I'm a professional musician. I've been doing it for quite a while now. I have been touring for the last 9 years with a country artist named Chase Rice. If any of you guys out there know who he is, based out of Nashville. So it's been a whirlwind of 9 years. Just that's been my main gig. And then when I'm not on the road, I do full-time production in all different genres. That's kind of where like my creative passion sort of shifts into. So if I'm not busy on the road, I am busy here in the studio or any studio where people have me do the production thing. So
Cool. And then your main instrument's guitar.
yeah.
So you went to Berkeley, right, for guitar?
Yeah, I did back in 2007 for a brief period of time. Actually, most of the year of '07 I spent over at Berkeley. I went in there with the shredder mentality, the whole John Petrucci, Steve Vai, Eddie Van Halen thing, and I walked out of there playing gospel music and jazz and pop and all those things. Like my mind was just blown and expanded at the same time, to all these things about music and I will admit I was very close-minded too, because I thought that it was dream theater or death,
Sure.
sort of thing, but kind of going to a music school or going to a place where there's a different, diverse group of people that are doing things so much differently that where you came from doing, it just really expands your mind. So that was a very useful and incredible experience for me. And really soon after I came back home from that, I started touring with, regional bands and, doing the whole van travel thing, eating ramen noodles and sleeping between seats and that whole thing. So
You got to put in your time, man.
yeah, man,
It's fun.
and now that I look back, I mean, it was a pretty shitty time, but it was worth it,
It's a good life experience.
Absolutely. It really helps you develop and it prepares you for at least what mine now is. Yeah.
Yeah, so talk about that a little bit. So you went from working with regional bands, smaller bands. So how did you get into like working in these really big, like major touring bands? How did you make that connection?
So, not to sound cliche, but it is so true. And it took me actually experiencing it myself for the cliche to become truth. But it is all about who you know. So, I'll never forget my first NAMM show, which for any one of you who don't know, the NAMM convention is all about, music merchants kind of getting together. It's like the one weekend where all of the major music companies get together in one building and they exhibit their products and whatnot. And
It's
it's
the
just
same pool of people that go to Comic-Con.
yeah, pretty much. Right. Exactly. Yeah. All our basement dwelling
Yes,
friends.
100%.
Sorry, guys. But my first one was the Summer NAMM in Nashville in 2011. And I'll never forget, I spent my days at the convention center, the old convention center down there. And then at night, I would go down Lower Broadway, which is the main strip in Nashville where all the live music is happening 24/7. And I had met who is our bass player in the band now, Marcelo. I had met him then and we remained in touch for all those years. So that was back in 2011. Fast track over to 2014, Marcelo and Chase Rice, they were touring with, I believe it was Dierks Bentley, and they were playing over at, I still call it Deer Creek.
Yeah, it changes every year.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think it's Ruoff now. All the corporate stuff. Gotta love it.
You guys are fucking it up.
Yeah, brother.
No, just kidding. Keep it cool, Ruoff.
But I remember taking him out for lunch that afternoon and I said, hey, man, like, what would it take for me to get into these kinds of gigs, with the major artists?
Because he was already playing at that level for a while.
Absolutely. And he told me straight up without even blinking, he said, man, you have got to live in Nashville. Because a lot of these opportunities, all these artists need to know that you're going to be there and readily
They can
available.
pick you up at any time.
Exactly, and that and they know that you're there, within the 30 to even 45-minute vicinity. I'm over here 5 hours away in Indiana. So, that was a bit of a downer when he told me that, but I was like, you know what? No, I'm going to remain determined. Still
make it
here.
work.
Yeah, I'm going to figure it out. So fast forward another year, 2015, I had seen the guitar player that I ultimately replaced announce that his last gig was going to be in Fort Wayne, I think at a baseball field, if I remember correctly. This was back at the end of August of 2015. And so I found that like at midnight one evening. And so I hit up Marcel. I'm like, dude, I know what you told me last year, but I'm really interested. What do you need from me? Because I really want this gig. I said, well, remember I told you you have to live in Nashville, but regardless, send me your stuff. Send me your resume, send me videos, audio, whatever you have. I sent him everything. It might have been like 1 in the morning. And he's like, Jesus Christ, dude, this is crazy. He forwards it over to our drummer, Jeremy, who is also our musical director. And he says, dude, who the hell is this guy? And why doesn't he live in Nashville? So, like, I had impressed him, then. And so I get a phone call the next day from our drummer, and he kind of gives me all the details about what they're looking for to fill in the position. And I told him, yeah, man, that all sounds great. So then he said, man, you're gonna have to give me 2 weeks because we have to get everything like the wheels rolling for this change or whatever. And we have another candidate that might be interested in the gig as well that lives in Nashville.
Dun dun dun.
Yeah, so competition. And so I was like, okay, no problem. Worst 2 weeks of my freaking life.
Oh, I'm sure.
The most agonizing 2 weeks. I mean, at that point, I almost didn't care once like the second like and final week came through. I didn't care if it was a no at that point because I was just the stress. I think all these white hairs are a result
From
of
that,
that
yeah.
9 years ago.
Well, that's a pivotal
Yeah.
moment in your life, and obviously it's changed it since then. But yeah, I mean, I don't blame you for being like stressed out. I mean, I've had some gigs or like even like played some shows that you really don't want to fuck them up because you feel like it's gonna be like that next step
Oh,
forward.
absolutely. And that was my thing, man. I knew that was going to be my breakthrough thing. Like once I opened that door, that was going to be like that next step, that the new, what will become the new foundation,
Sure,
you
because I
know?
mean, and not to knock on Indianapolis, but there's only so far you can go in this town
Yeah.
because there's not the same focus, there's not the same concentration of big major bands here. But it's funny because Indianapolis is such a great city to pass through.
Oh,
So you would
absolutely.
think it'd be a little
Yeah.
bit more central for the Midwest,
Yeah.
but and hopefully that changes through time.
And I'm sure this is a conversation we're going to hit on here during this podcast because there's so much to be said about the original scene and like the cover scenes and like things that are happening here in Indiana as far as even the wide range of talent that we have going on. But I
We're gonna
digress.
bookmark that and put that in the second segment. But so then
Yeah.
you got the gig with
Yeah.
Chase and you've been doing that now for 8 years.
So this will be my 9th year. So come September this year, it'll be 9 years,
Nice.
man. And it's kind of been a breeze. Like I look back now and like I still kind of pinch myself. Because holy cow, this is how I make a living. I get to travel the world. And it's kind of funny saying it this way because I had envisioned this kind of life for myself, like playing in a rock or a metal band.
Right.
Because that's what I dreamt of. I was raised. My parents were heavy metal, parents, and so I got raised in all the stuff that I still love to listen to this day. So I had envisioned this kind of life for myself doing that. Never in a million years did I think that country music, which is so I can't even say is localized to America anymore because it's such a worldwide phenomenon now, but never in my wildest
Yeah,
dreams.
everyone likes to party.
Yeah, I'd never. You're right, exactly. With a beer in the hand. Yeah.
Brother.
Yeah, brother. And I'm not even gonna throw brands out there, man. All beer is good, I guess. But I never envisioned that country music would be the genre that would take me to all these places. I mean,
Yeah, it's the most marketable. I mean,
yeah.
country, pop, rap. It's just, if you're gonna play big stadiums, you gotta play music that everyone loves.
And it's such a gray area now with country music because now it's such a chameleon genre. You have, guys like Hardy that are injecting more of that rock and that metal thing. And now by way of him, you have Nickelback also kind of creeping up in the country thing as well. And then you have Sam Hunt, who like when he was coming up in the scene, he really brought that pop sensibility to it. Almost like that pop hip hopish sort of thing,
Yeah.
very LA sound to it. And you have so many variants of what country is now. I mean, what really is country anymore? I mean, at this point, all I say is, well, just pick a genre and add a little bit of a twang to it.
Right.
And now it's considered country.
Just add a draw.
Yeah.
Maybe a slide guitar and
Yeah, it's no different
pedal
from
steel,
metal
whatever.
anymore because, with metal, you have all these slash chorus for everything,
I think
so-
everyone's trying to just like
Yeah.
poke holes at the genre and see what they can fill into it
Right,
and make it
right.
like these weird, crazy things. But it always makes it fun because then things are innovative and different. And then also old trends come back.
Yeah, sure.
But and it's so funny because I was actually just talking to the bands that played last night at Freeform about all the Nashville musicians are always like metal people, gospel people playing in pop and country bands because those are the paying gigs and those are the gigs that are consistent.
Absolutely.
But so you do the road stuff, and then we're here in your private studio.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about like because you built all of this and put it all together. The aesthetics in it are really cool. So talk about this room from the ground up, how it all got put together.
So when my fiance and I bought this house, at least this model house was structured option for this room to be like a home office. So right now we kind of have hardwood floors now, but this used to be all carpeted and stuff. So I was
Yeah, I
like,
remember this room before.
yeah, it's crazy. And the walls were like this really light gray, almost white type thing. So it was a very barren room, but I had already envisioned it. Hey, I want this to be my studio. And I'll never forget, I used to have the desk right against this wall behind us, but it never felt right, and when we had our roommate, in the past, mixing engineer as well, he had his desk here eventually. And even then with his desk, I was like, man, the flow is still not working. How can I visualize this room eventually when it's time for me to really put it together the way that I want it, to fit the flow that I want and also be able to fit people because it's not a very big room. It's really small, but I
Yeah.
have to figure out a way to create that flow to make it very inviting and still have enough space for people to sit. And, I can't record drums here, but at least have enough to record everything else but that. So fast forward to about a few months ago, my fiance and I finally decided, all right, let's go ahead and try this out. And I remember we were looking at paint swatches and like we painted.
So much fun. I love
Yeah.
interior
And I
design.
think you remember, like, I had like two patches over there on that wall of like different grays that I wanted to try out or whatever, because I really wanted the dark vibe. I wanted almost like this modern, minimalistic, like man cave sort of thing. And so,
Very masculine energy, but it's cool though because
yeah,
it's if you're wanting it to be. I mean, granted, you want to do all genres, but
yeah,
your root genre is rock metal,
yeah,
so this kind of gives more of like a granite kind of
yeah,
feel
for
to it,
sure.
kind of more like industrial.
Absolutely.
That's been a really common trend now. And the nice thing is, if you have it all matched, doesn't really matter what. I mean, this room can be pink and purple,
Right.
but if it all matches and complements, like you don't have black everywhere. You have it on the panels, but then the walls are gray, and then you've got accents of white and
Hmm.
gold. It makes the room look just very cohesive and very comfortable. Because I mean, I've been in home studios or private studios, whatever you want to call them, that have had just like crap everywhere.
Hmm.
And then, yeah, maybe it was carpet, which no offense to people that have carpet. It's just hardwood floors are easier to keep clean.
Yeah.
They're easier to keep tidy. Um,
And the aesthetic, I mean, I feel like you have more room to work with personally. Like, I have this like really awesome cowhide rug like right underneath us, and
we have the same thing in my little home
yeah.
studio. I just have like the mini version of this.
Yeah, so it's just really cool. I mean, I feel like, we wanted to create a space that would allow itself to just be a puzzle that we can put together however we wanted. And I remember when I told you about it, and that kind of piqued your interest. And I told you what I was doing, like specifically with like the corner panels, and you came over and you helped me build all of them, and just, having you here and doing that, like once we kind of put them all together, I'm like, man, this is
Started to see it come to life.
it's awesome. And that's a very, how it is, it's exciting. And we talked about this, we both love to build things, use our hands to create something brand new. So like once I saw those frames together, I'm like, man, okay, this is an actual reality, this is a possibility, this is great. And then kind of putting those installation panels inside of them and then wrapping them, and I'm like, okay, man,
The
this is
final product.
cool.
And then you can always
Yeah,
like literally see it, touch it, feel it. I'm telling
yeah.
you, if you've never used a miter saw or a clamp or a track saw, you're missing out.
Yeah, if you'll want to come to my school of building and chopping wood,
Yeah.
let me know.
If you want to feel primal, come work on some woodworking stuff here.
Yeah.
It is sick.
Raw beef not included.
Gross. But so
Yeah.
you built the room here. You've got a ton of gear. We can talk about Kiesel as well too. But so you got tons of guitars in here, tons of equipment in here. So is this an accumulation of stuff that you've always had? Some of the stuff new? What? Tell us about what's in the room in terms of like the equipment and availability that you have.
So you mentioned Kiesel, so we'll just go straight to that. I became endorsed by Kiesel back in 2016. I think I remember I attended my last NAMM show over in Anaheim, California that winter of 2016. And I had a buddy of mine. He and I were endorsed by Music Man at that time, and so we kind of talked about it or whatever. And he said, hey, man, let me introduce you to Jeff and, the guys over at Kiesel. I had already known their old A&R rep back, from years ago. And so he happened to be there. And man, we spent a whole 2 hours during the convention just talking. It was actually me, my buddy Alex Campbell, fantastic guitar player. Highly recommend everybody check him out online. And then my buddy Dan Sugarman, who actually plays lead guitar with Ice Nine Kills.
Okay.
Yeah, so we were all like just kind of gathering with Jeff, talking, and one thing led to another, and we shook hands then, and the deal was done. And so I went over to their factory in Escondido, California, because, I never envisioned, Kiesel. And so for those of you who know what Carvin is or was, it's basically that's what Kiesel is. They started as Kiesel back in the 40s. They converted into Carvin in the 70s, and they were like that until 2014. I think it was because of like legalities and things like that with the names or whatever. So now they're back to Kiesel. And Carvin used to build all kinds of things, kind of like PV, where they sold mixing boards and monitors or whatever, like the whole gamut. Now they're just guitars and basses. So, I mean, like the quality of instruments that's just, shot through the moon and then some. And so I signed my deal with them then, and I got my first two custom builds with them. And
That had to be so fun.
incredible, because the beautiful thing about Kiesel, they are a custom shop. Everything comes out of the United States, which I think is really cool. I love that, that kind of helps simulate our own
Well, and
economy.
you can actually go there if you're getting a custom build done. You
Yeah,
can like literally pick out what you want in it, which is
absolutely.
awesome.
And I have guitars that are built from all over the world, so it's not knocking on, manufacturing or business from anywhere, but it's awesome that I know that I could just get on a airplane and I know that the factory is going to be, here in the United States, and I know the kind of quality that they're pumping or whatever. So, and going back to the whole thing, they're all custom. So you technically, every time you build an instrument with them, you're creating a signature model, because you get to pick everything, the
'Cause
woods.
they don't have just like regular like how Gibson has an SG just
So
out.
they do. That's the thing, is that they have all these like models. So like a bunch of what I have here are what's known as their Aries model. That's kind of like their flagship model. But then you can build upon those models. So whatever models that they have foundationally, you can go into the custom shop and then pick what wood do you want. So basically you can customize everything short of the body, like modifying the body shapes or anything like that. You just pick the foundational models and then turn them into something that is yours.
Right. And I'm sure most professional musicians know what they want, but let's say you don't know all the hardware. Like maybe there's a musician they're like, I like playing guitar, but I don't know anything about like specs and all that. Do they have like master builders that will like sit there and work with you
Oh yeah.
and like make sure they're like, okay, try out this neck and that
Yeah.
neck and then these pickups? Have you had that experience where you got to go there and just try out a ton of different
Oh,
ones? And
absolutely. Yeah. The few times that I've gone to the factory, and Jeff would be there, or my A&R guy, I'd say, it's like, hey man, so I kind of know what I want. These are the woods that I've picked. And I think I remember last time when I had one of my hollow bodies built, which is one of my favorite guitars that I use on the road. I was unsure about the fret size on the fretboard. And so like having Jeff there to tell me, hey, go with this size instead, because he knew the kind of player that I was. So just because we already had that personal connection and he knew how I played, he knew my touch on a fretboard. And I'm glad that he suggested it. We ended up going with jumbo frets. I mean, sorry, not to nerd out too hard here, but and that was the perfect profile for it. So having that kind of knowledge available to you on tap is really amazing. And Jeff Kiesel's saying is always call my guys, call my guys. So like say for example, if you happen to not be in California and you can go to the factory and order stuff there in person, call the guys and they'll tell you exactly step by step what to do, how to do it. They are so knowledgeable. There's no way to really do it wrong. And what's cool too is that Jeff has such an incredible eye for proper aesthetics as well. So for
yeah,
example,
Kiesel
like,
guitars are always super pretty and like super cool and intricate.
and it's awesome and it's by design, because I I feel like I have a very good eye for aesthetics. So like all my finishes that I have picked for my guitars have all worked out really well. Nothing looks out of place. But like if something were out of place, Jeff would probably talk you out of it and be like, hey man, listen, this is such a nice piece of wood
Well,
that
and it
you have
also
here.
represents their brand too. They don't want to be putting
Yeah.
something out that looks ugly.
For sure, for sure. I mean, and if you still wanted to go with something super whimsical and stupid or whatever,
You just have to sign a waiver.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's a non-refundable item, whatever. But they're really cool about pointing you in the right direction with all things. So it's been such a treat working with those guys. I think this is 8 years now with them.
Nice.
So
You're
it's
a man of
incredible.
consistency.
It's great, man. And that's the thing. I mean, what a lot of people in this industry don't understand, because the term endorsement gets thrown around, like tennis balls all day long,
Right.
and
And a lot
it's
of artists think it's like the end all be all. Like once I get endorsed, then I'll finally make money.
yeah, that
That's
big
not how that
misconception. Oh
works.
man, the myth to kill all myths. But even beyond that is that a lot of artists don't understand that there's a synergistic connection that you create with the brand. A lot of artists like to just amass and accumulate things, and they don't understand that they have to give it back in some shape or
Represent
form.
it in a certain way.
Absolutely. So, like, you have a lot of these guys that would get all these full endorsements, but maybe they don't have enough of a social media presence. They don't make the
Sure.
effort to post enough little clips of them playing, or or like, for example, post enough pictures. Like with Kiesel, that is a requirement. It's an
Yeah,
exclusive, like part of the endorsement that I have with them is you have to showcase it. So, having a professional photographer out on the road with us, we get photos pretty much after
sure,
every night
all
that
the
we
time.
play. And my guitars are always on showcase. So it's cool because then I can post them on my stories on IG
Yeah,
or post.
you don't have to step out of your current day gig to make
Mhm.
extra time to do content days,
Exactly.
but you still do though because you know the importance of it. But
Absolutely.
yeah, the best way to showcase those guitars is when you're in front of however many people out on a stage.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
that's super cool. So you've got Kiesel, and then I know you got a bunch of other stuff here. What else you got? What other types of equipment you got in this room?
So I have some amplifiers, so there's a company that I've been working with for a long time as well, right about as long as Kiesel, so 8 years, Mojo Tone. And they have been such a fantastic company. They're based out of North Carolina. So you're kind of starting to see a pattern here. I like to keep things kind of like
American.
local. Yeah. Fuck
Yeah, brother.
yeah. But they're a fantastic company. As a matter of fact, they are historically known for supplying parts to a lot of different bigger manufacturers for amplifiers, guitars, and all that stuff. So, like, they make capacitors, they make amplifier parts, pickup parts. They also make their own pickups, they make their own amplifiers and whatnot. So, I remember meeting them too. Actually, that same NAM show that I met Kiesel, I met Mojotone, my good buddy Eddie Haddad, incredible guitar player based out of Nashville. He turned me on to them. He took me over there, introduced me to all the guys. I plugged into one of the amplifiers that I have here, and the rest is history. We all immediately loved each other. So they have been so incredibly supportive of my pursuits. Anytime that I have needed anything for any tour or any studio situation, it's almost like a say no more fam type thing. They're always there for me. So I can't plug Mojotone enough, shamelessly or shamefully. I don't care, but they are such an
All shame.
all the shame, baby. But they're such an incredible company. So I have a lot of Mojotone stuff. A bunch of my guitars that I have here have Mojotone pickups because they just sound great.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like the thing over there. Mesa Boogie has been an incredible supporter of mine as well. I signed on with them back on the Kiesel days too. So like I have one of their amplifiers there in cabinets, and they just sound good. So I mean, the big thing, how we have this whole thing with the digital revolution, where nowadays you can just plug directly to your interface and you have an amp modeler and you have all these things or simulations of the greatest compressors of all time or whatever. But I want to be able to offer not just to myself, but my eventual clients, the ability to go analog if they want to. There's nothing more satisfying than still having air being pushed out of a speaker and hitting you square in the mouth, and just the sound of rock and roll, man. And just to kind of quote what's the name of the movie? Spinal Tap. This one goes to
That's so
11.
loud.
Yeah, I have shit that goes to 11 here, and it's fun, and I want to be able to offer that to everybody. So I have the Mojitone stuff. I mean, I have some of my controllers here from Native Instruments, so I have the machine. I've become very much a pop producer, so I like to produce pop and hip hop and whatnot. And Native Instruments has been such an integral part of my workflow. I have a lot of different stomp boxes and pedals over there too.
Pedals are so fun. You
Yeah.
ever it'd be really cool if you just a side note on this like wall right here where the computer is. Have you ever seen JHS has like a YouTube channel where they show all the pedals
Oh, dude, I
and they have
love
them
that
all on the wall?
wall.
Well, you could just
Yeah.
put like a bracket there and you could just have them like kind of just on this back. I don't know if it'd mess with the acoustics, but you could have them on the back wall for like a
And
good
it
aesthetic.
probably could, but maybe in such a good way. So I use this thing called Sound ID from SonarWorks. It basically tunes your room or whatever. So I mean, any change that I make here, I could just very easily retune it.
Sure.
And of course, I always tell people don't just rely on these tuning things or whatever. Get the paneling done first and at least treat the problem area. So like when you help me, like, and I think I remember telling you that
Well, this room was super boomy before all these panels went up.
well, and I told you how high priority it was that we did these corner panels because treating the corners and the bass reflections are such a big deal in a room, especially a smaller room where a lot of those things just really kind of
Mhm.
clutter up,
Yeah.
especially in the middle, because those waves are massive. It's a lot of energy, and that's all kind of running this way in the room.
Mhm.
So at least if we treat the corners first with deep enough panels. I remember, I don't know if you remember when you came here and I already had just the corners, it deadened up the room so
Instantly,
much.
yeah.
Nothing else was up. Nothing else was even in the room.
Well, it's funny, in my room too. I granted I didn't actually like properly measure things. I just wanted it so that the room was generally sounded better because I'm not doing anything crazy. I'm doing maybe vocal demos and guitars and whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
But even just putting them up like directly above like the cloud above the computer and then just on the main wall, it just instantly like every part of my house when I close that door, it's like
It's
you know it
crazy.
just like it like all the air gets like sucked out. It's just like you're just in this room.
It's
It
crazy
sounds
how
really
that
good.
happens, you know. I mean, and when you have a naked room, you know, and you clap, you do the
That was
clap test,
horrible.
and you hear the reflections at the end. I mean, those things are getting picked up by microphones. If you're recording acoustic
Yeah,
instruments,
if you want your stuff to sound like it was recorded in a closet, just pick any room with tile and glass and horrible sounding things.
Yeah, and I also, you know, kind of feel like I got lucky with the way that you know, Beezer Homes builds these newer homes. A lot of the insulation, actually all the insulation in the house is rock wool safe and sound, which is what I use on these panels, but
Perfect.
they're behind all like the drywall. So I feel like I
It's like
had
double padded.
an advantage, you know, and then like the vinyl wrapping that is right underneath the flooring as well, it's actually to acoustic like coefficients and stuff. So I feel like I got lucky having already a really good foundation to work with. So really then adding the paneling just helped elevate
Yeah.
that quality of those
The
audios.
extra 10-20% just
Yeah.
to kind of get out those really dead sounds. But
Absolutely. So that's what I suggest to people. You know, get your acoustics set up before you even spend all this money on crazy gear or
yeah.
whatever, and then tune your rooms.
Or even if you just want your room to sound less like shit. I mean, just in general,
Yeah,
like if you want to
yeah.
have like a nice room to have meetings or hang out, or like if you have a home office, if you put up sound panels, it'll really help because most places aren't treated.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. But yeah, kind of going back to the whole JHS thing, I think that that would work because I really do want to see shelving because, you know, stomp boxes are like trading cards for us
It's
guitar
fun.
players. You know, like you want to collect every color, every
Well, and
shape.
like you can get like fake. I think do you have like a fake plan in here? Or you did, or
I used to. I kind of want to buy some more though.
yeah,
Yeah,
if you do little accents of things, it'll make it super homey.
yeah, for
But
sure.
we're gonna take a quick break. We're gonna come back and talk about production, some of the stuff you're working on,
Absolutely.
and what you're hoping to do with all that. But yeah, we'll be right back.
Yeah.
And we are back with Risky Stays with John, with me, with 45 Creations. Hello, how are you? So,
Howdy.
before we went off on a little break, we had a little cliffhanger on some production stuff. You talk about producing pop, rap, country, rock, everything. So, let's talk a little bit about what you're producing now and your roles in that, and then what you're working towards with this room. Because a lot of the stuff you're producing now is currently working in other studios
Mhm.
and then you're bringing it here or
Yeah.
you're just getting this room prepped to then bring people here. So kind of talk about that.
Absolutely. So I got the biggest chunk of my start in production here locally was over in Broad Ripple at this facility called Roundtable Recording, and you know, the guys over there kind of took me under their wing, and I'll never forget. It was actually in the thick of the pandemic because everybody had to quit touring. I had to quit touring. Everything kind of took a, you know, things in the back burner. And so I was like, all right, well, God, what am I going to do? I mean, I started door dashing and I started doing all kinds of things or whatever. And then my buddy Travis, who was one of the co-owners of the studio, contacted me and said, "It's like, hey man, we haven't officially opened the doors yet for the studio, but come and check it out. Bubba Sparks is going to be in town, you know, Miss New Booty. And I want to co-produce a song for him with you." It's like, man, okay, this is fantastic. This is great. And Travis and I have known each other for a very long time. We've done work together, you know, for various artists. And so it was something that worked out beautifully. So I produced that. And that was kind of also like an audition for me as far as like my capabilities as a creator. And I mean, soon after that, I pretty much spent most of 2020 working out of that studio with artists coming left and right because there was no better time to be creative than
Sure.
during the pandemic. So everybody was like, man, if there is no better time to create an album than now, let's go ahead and get it done. And we were the hot facility to go to get it done here locally. And so I've had the chance to work on a lot of things. So a lot of people throw the term producer a lot, and it could, you know, there's such a gray area with that. A lot of producers kind of like when you think of production, for the most part, you think, oh, beat maker, but production is like this all encompassing thing. Somebody that wears a producer cap is somebody that is overseeing the entire project as well. It's not just the creation of the music, but also down to the marketing plan. And it's like, okay, well, if it's not me, your producer, who's gonna, help you market it, then here is this person that I'm gonna hire
Sure.
on your behalf, this marketing team or whatever. So you're wearing like the manager cap in a way, to kind of oversee how the whole project from beginning to end
Well, and
is gonna
that's when
look
you're
like.
working on a production that someone is trying to do it as a career
Yeah,
or to try to push it further. Now, if it's
absolutely.
just someone who's just like, I just want to record an album, I just want to have it out, I don't care how many listens it gets,
Yeah.
then that's a wholly totally different thing. And that doesn't necessarily need a producer. A producer would help make it better.
Yeah, at that point, it's just the creative side of it too. So, like, if they came to me with like a demo tape of vocal and piano or vocal and guitar or whatever, and they have this vision. So I asked them, hey, what is your vision? Where do you want to take this? Like, well, who are some of your influences? What are some songs that have been influencing you as of late? And then we would kind of sit together and listen to stuff while at the same time listening to this person's tone vocally and how they play the acoustic guitar and how they play the piano. Like, and hearing every little thing, like the inflection of when they're singing this part and how hard or how soft they play the instrument when that part comes through or whatever. Like as a producer, you have to be able to kind of sharpen your ear to listen to all those things. And then you kind of start connecting the dots and be like, okay, well, okay, this person, I know where they're trying to go to with their sound. Let's go ahead and create this. Let's start with this. I'm feeling this vibe.
Just
What do you
try
think
out
about this?
different things to see how it sticks.
Yeah, exactly. And then I start creating the beat, and after that, then I start kind of adding guitar, or it can be the other way around. We kind of, enhance the part that was already brought to me and write a little bit over that, and then create the beats that go with that. And then after we have that musical foundation, then start editing those tones and morphing them and do all kinds of, the producer sauce to it, and then before you know it, you have a song that then you can send over to mix and master, and then it gets released. So the whole conception of a song from its birth to master and release ready, man,
It's a
it
lot of
is
steps.
it's a lot of steps, but it's such a rush, man. And I love it. What I tell people, because a lot of people know me primarily for, playing music live and touring, the world or whatever, but I'm a creative first and a performer second. Even though I'm doing mostly one of something, for
Sure.
most of the year, because that's my main gig, but I'm a creative first and foremost. I got into this whole thing as a musician because I'm a creative. I'm a creator. I love to compose. I love to write. I love to, and now I love to do it with and for other people too, kind of help be a part of their dreams coming true, because I'm getting to live mine every day that I do this
Right.
whole thing. I want to see other people live out there. So,
Well, and it's a cool appeal too to be working with someone who is active in the music industry and doing all kinds of cool stuff. Cause like, for you playing Madison Square Garden, it's still cool every time, but it's like, all right, we're here again.
right,
But
right.
for anyone here in Indiana who might have never leave the state or left the state, sorry,
Yeah.
they might think that's the coolest thing in the world, and they're like, oh man, I get to work with someone who's like doing the thing. So it's like a big appeal to a lot of people,
And I
and
love surrounding myself with people like that because I miss, a lot of times I miss that energy. A lot of people still ask me, it's like, hey, do you get the butterflies when you get on stage? And it's like,
no, I'm dead inside.
yeah, dude, that butterfly died a long time ago. Yeah. No, but yes and no. Like again, like for example, we're gonna do this major tour with Dirk Bentley starting this summer. So from June through September, we're gonna be with him. And so that first run, I think it's June 14th, shameless plug here. We're gonna be playing at Ruoff
Yeah.
or
Oh, nice
Deerfield.
here. Oh,
Yeah.
cool.
So that's gonna be really cool. And we're doing direct support for Dirk. So like that's the only venue short of Lucas Oil that I have left to play here.
Oh, you've never done Ruoff? That'd be
No,
cool.
so that's gonna be
I
really,
I,
really
I
awesome.
want to come to that show. That'd be a lot of
Oh,
fun.
dude, absolutely. I'll definitely get you there. But like, I know I'm gonna have butterflies that day because
Well, it's a meaningful
Yeah.
place to you because it's in your hometown.
Well, we've all gone to so many concerts there, and I don't know about you. I'm sure you've felt the same way, but like when you sit on the lawn and you watch, I'm like, man, one day I want to be on that stage,
Yeah,
or someday I'm going to be on the stage. For me, it was always that I'm going to be there.
sure.
I don't know how it's going to happen, but I'm going to always with that determination of yes, 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 you know. And now that it's all kind of coming back full circle, it's like, oh my gosh, man,
You finally have that moment.
it's incredible. So I get butterflies for things like that. We're also going to play Red Rocks over in
That'd be
Colorado
cool.
for this tour, and that
You've
is
done that?
no. So
No.
that is the last of my top 3 venues that I dreamt of. So it's that one. It was the London O2 Arena, which I
Oh
got to
yeah,
play
that's
back
the
in.
big circle one, or it has a stage that can do like a
No,
circle
so
stage.
that's a big arena over in London, UK. You're probably thinking of Wembley Stadium.
Maybe. Well, because Nothing But Thieves did an O2
Okay.
concert, but I think they were on a stage that was rotating. It was really cool.
Oh, well, it's probably just the way that their stage
They
was
set it
set
up,
up.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So it might have been the arena. But I'll never forget when Led Zeppelin, this was several years ago now, like when they announced their comeback with Jason Bonham, John's,
Right.
son.
Son.
The tickets, I think, all sold out in like 30 seconds. And I remember telling my dad, I'm like, man, I don't know how, but someday I want to play the London O2 Arena, and of course, I always thought of Led Zeppelin for that, that would be so epic. And then fast forward to, I think it was yeah, it was 2018, I believe. We were over there and we played one of the biggest country music festivals in the entire UK. And we were there as direct support for Keith Urban, and we got to play the London O2. So that was a dream come true. I was going on stage like this,
Yeah, I'm sure.
trembling and
You could
feeling the
probably feel the
butterflies.
rumbles of people walking out.
It's incredible, and I lost my dad back in 2008 to stage 4 pancreatic cancer, and the reason why I bring this up is because he was the one that got me into music. He used to play guitar when I was growing up and being raised in Venezuela. I'll never forget always sitting in the terrace listening to him playing, nylon string acoustic, and always feeling, oh man, that guitar is like twice my size back then, but I really want to play it and I want to learn it. He taught me my first 3 chords, and kind of like the rest was history sort of thing. But like after he passed away, I was like, all right, well, what can I do to also kind of keep him, within me, kind of have that open line of communication, to him in some way, shape, or form. And playing those venues, like when I get those
You
butterflies,
feel like he's there
it's
with
almost
you.
like I feel his presence
Mhm.
there, and I'm not, I don't know what anybody believes in or whatever, but like for me, like when I feel that level of excitement in what I love to do, um, I feel like that's an open line of communication to him. So like when I played Madison Square Garden, it was like we were having a conversation the
Yeah.
entire day.
That's cool.
Just sitting on the seats and just looking at everybody kind of like setting the stage up and just looking at everything and touching the walls. And I'm like, man, this is a lot of people dream of doing this. And here I am.
Would you say it was equally impactful going there pre-show and just having a time to yourself versus actually playing it? Because I'm sure playing it's
Yeah.
amazing too, but like I feel like anytime I've ever worked a stage or been to a place, it's always a lot more like my memory is a lot better before, like just seeing it with the lights on and seeing how it's organized and set up and like thinking about how the room's going to be laid out, especially like from a filming photographing
Absolutely.
perspective. You have to know your spots.
And for big shows like that, I love to take my time to do that. So like I have this routine, and it's kind of funny. We all of us guys on the road kind of have like our own thing, to either help us cope with the road or just to kind of make the road more adventurous for us or whatever. I've kind of become quite a bit of a coffee snob as a result
Yeah.
of that. So like a lot of people that follow me on social media, everywhere that I end up, I always like to look for like the nicest or some of the nicest mom and pop coffee shops locally. And I like kind of giving them shout outs by tagging them on my stories, and then I get to practice a little photography or iPhoneography, as the cool kids call it.
Some coffee
you know.
portraits.
Yeah, and that kind of thing. But for a lot of those bigger shows, I do like to then come back and sit on the seats and just look,
Like
at
feel
my
the
entire
history of
surroundings.
it. And
Yeah, first, just take in the fact that we're in this massive arena where tens of thousands of people are going to be there later that night, and just trying to wrap my mind around that many people want to come to one place, to be
yeah, they're taking time out of
entertained.
their schedules or days. They're probably
Yeah.
spending a lot of money to them
Yeah.
at least to go see it. So
Yeah.
it means a lot to them. And then you guys put on a good
And
show.
then it
so.
means a lot to us. And then for me personally, means the entire universe, because that humbles me. because those are the people, man. It's the fans that are making it possible for me and our boys to be able to do what we do.
Because
So
they
that
keep
is not,
going. Yeah, the Chase Rice
yeah.
fans, you guys are locked in.
Yeah, yeah,
Let me say,
very, very passionate.
yeah, they follow anything that he
Yeah.
touches to the ends of the earth, which is cool because
Yeah.
then you have a fan base that actually cares, and you can
Yeah.
see people that you probably see it. You
Hmm.
know, I'm sure there's regulars that you see
Hmm.
quite often that come through and do
Yeah,
VIP and all that.
which is really awesome. And I have such a deep appreciation for our fans with Chase because, as you said, they're very, very passionate and they're locked in. And, Chase has done such a great job at creating such an amazing grassroots movement to follow his career, and then as a result, with us being a part of that whole thing, like they follow our pursuits as musicians as well. So it's such a cool experience, man. But just again, to be able to sit in these rooms and just kind of take it in and just be grateful for everything that's happening. And then when it's time to actually get on stage and play the music, it's, oh my God.
I'm sure it's awesome.
I can't really articulate into words what that's like. Again, being able to have played the London O2 Arena and then also do Madison Square Garden, and then you get to be in such a cool city like New York, and go all over the place during the
Tons of
day.
stuff to do.
Yeah, and then at night you're at this legendary. I mean, you're in hallowed ground, and then like a lot of history was created and made there, and now I get to do Red Rocks later this summer, which for me is like the culmination of that first top three. It's like now I'm going to be able to open a door to a new top three or a new top five, so, and that list is always kind of creating itself, because every place that we go to has this very unique, special thing about it. Every venue has some signature, some little trademark or something really awesome to it that, and you feel it, man. You feel it in the fabric of everything, in the fabric of the people that show up to that, and the fabric of the walls, the fabric of the crew that are working everything and putting it together, and then just us and being on stage and making it happen. It all works in synergy.
Nice, man. So you're taking that energy from out on the stage and you're bringing it into studio, doing more production stuff. So, what have you learned on the road working with all these professionals, industry professionals? Because when you're in towns, you'll also work in studios doing some session work out there too, right? So all the stuff that you're trying to do for this private studio, is it a culmination of things that you learned along the way on the road, or is it a lot of like self-taught, YouTube? Is there a combination of both?
It's a combination of everything. Yeah. So like, being able to teach myself stuff and maybe taking a course here and there. But, I always tell people, because even when I went to Berkeley, I learned so much there. But I feel that I have learned the absolute most on the road, and I don't want to call it, I don't want to be, all boomer like and be like, oh yeah, the school of hard knocks, brother. No, but yes, at the same time, it's also being out
Hey,
there.
you gotta go out and fail, and you gotta go out and
Yeah.
see things. You gotta
Yeah.
talk to people and pick their brains on
Yeah,
things that
that
work.
is the real school, and I will say the number one lesson that I have learned from the road that then I've been able to bring into the studio and production thing is listening, being able to know how to listen. And I just listen to people's stories and things like that and what makes them the persons that they are, because then ultimately their personalities translate into what they're creating, right?
It's easier to work with them once you know how
Right.
they operate.
But it's also listening to how all these elements work together to create a song. Coming from a background, a very flashy guitar playing background, because my influences are all the shredders. I always tell everybody that I feel like I was born in the wrong era. Like, had I been born,
You have 80s hair in 2024.
dude, if I would have been born in like the late 60s, early 70s, I would have definitely caught the wave of the hair metal stuff that happened in the 80s. And I would have been that guy wearing my sister's spandex and,
You
the
still can,
makeup
brother.
and all that stuff. And
It's
which
never
is
too
coming
late.
back, Steel Panther, if you're listening. But, I would have fit in so well with that. And I always loved those guitar players. They were very flashy, very melodic, but just seeing all the pyrotechnics
Super
that were
fun.
happening, I was like, man, that's what I want to be, and then when I discovered progressive metal music with Dream Theater, I mean, John Petrucci became my musical Bible, and like I learned everything there that I could possibly learn from him and then kind of adapt it to my sound. But then I kind of like quoting this book called Zen Guitar, and I don't know if you've heard of it, but you would think that a book named Zen Guitar would actually be about guitar, but really it's a philosophy on life about, using the analogy of a white belt to then becoming a black belt. But then once you become a black belt, having to shed that black belt and become a white belt again to learn something
Yeah,
new.
relearn.
Exactly. So I kind of, reached this point in my ability as a player with my technical ability. But then I was like, all right, well, what's next? Like, Obviously, shredding is not enough to get you gigs or enough to, do all those
Well, and
things
it
or whatever.
doesn't work in every song either.
Exactly. It doesn't. So it's like, well, what do I need to do? Well, when I shed the quote unquote black belt, and I kind of started again from the beginning, I was like, okay, now I need to learn how to listen. What elements work on these songs? And I had to learn that from the perspective of being a live player, because live, you have to know dynamics so well.
Mhm.
You
Well,
are
live's entirely different too. You can noodle and do all kinds of fun, intricate stuff, but recording wise, it's more about what you take out and what
exactly.
is like the core of the song that's really important. You don't want to fluff it too much,
Yeah.
but then if you use like production elements, you got to be like really specific with them and
Yeah,
all
and in
that.
my experience, it's mostly been subtractive more than additive. Exactly, as you said. Sometimes, and not to sound cliche again, but a lot of times less is more. There are times where more is more and less is less. So again, it all goes back to listening, being able to listen to what the artist's voice is. Always prioritizing the artist and prioritizing the song. The greatest artists that we've ever had in our history, and still even the new ones that are coming that are creating amazing music, it's honoring and respecting the song and not trying to put too much, ear candy on stuff
Sure.
that doesn't need it.
Right.
It's keeping the song in a way that serves it, because then people feel that as well.
So, and it's probably something, and I've talked to a couple of different audio engineers, producers about it. It's probably tough. And it's the same thing with like video and creative and making whatever is a lot of times you're going to have to take your own thought of how it should be out of the equation. If either A, you disagree with the client, or B, maybe like what you like isn't really going to serve what they're doing. So, how
Absolutely.
do you maintain a balance of like, obviously, you have guitar knowledge to the nth degree and worked in all different types of genres, but let's say someone comes back to you and then they're like, okay, we need to redo all this stuff. And in your mind, you're like, well, that's how I feel like it should be. But then, you're also working for someone because that's different. Like, I'll film something or I'll design something and I think it's awesome. And then they're like, this sucks. I'm like, well, oops.
Right.
But that's the whole thing is if you're going to do this, you have to be thick skinned. You got to know how to take the criticism and all that. So, how do you maintain that balance of like, things that you want to happen, but then things that your client really wants to have, and if they don't really match up, how do you navigate those?
Still listening, baby.
Yeah,
That is the name of the game. Listen, 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 listen. Because at the end of the day, you are being hired by this artist. So, yeah, that is where you draw the line. You have to remember that you are hired by somebody else, and this person has a vision
Mhm.
for what they want.
You can at least preface it, be like, hey, in my humble opinion, I feel like this would be the best thing for the song. If you don't want it, that's fine, but I
Yeah.
don't think it's going to turn out how you want
Yeah,
it
and that
to.
is my job as a producer as well, is to also explain why I feel that maybe taking this approach that I'm suggesting may be the best way. But then 9 times out of 10, what's funny is that we're able to meet in the middle somewhere, to
Mm,
where I'm still able to sell them what I believe is right, while then also honoring what they believe is right. And then the results that come out are results that make everybody happy.
yeah.
And it tends being better than what that person originally envisioned and what I originally envisioned.
Well, and I feel like a lot of creatives have a hard time with confrontation because I mean it's an uncomfortable thing. I don't necessarily love to be in confrontation,
Right.
but I
Same.
love sitting in it when it's happening
Right.
because I feel very composed to look at things logically, which I feel
Hmm.
like a lot of times whenever issues or disagreements happen is it's emotional thinking versus logical thinking.
Absolutely.
So, but being like a business owner, you're trying to run the space to bring in clients, run it as a studio. You're going to have that business mindset too, which is we try to preach on this show is that you can be creative and business minded, being firm in your pricing and also the project that you're doing. So it's like, okay, you have X amount of hours for this at this cost. If things go over and they do go over, it'll be this much more. But like, you need to know this before we get in too deep because music, you can get very deep into recording and you can lose your ass money wise if you have to keep redoing things or you didn't practice before you got to the studio. So, but it's a good thing I feel like to talk about being on both sides, the client side and the producer side. Be strong in your morals and your ethics. Talk like don't have pent up aggression and like passive aggressively send notes back. Like just call someone and be like, hey, I don't like how this came out. Here's how we're gonna change this. And I've had that call with plenty of people.
Clear,
It,
concise
yeah.
communication goes a long way, man. And it's that. And again, it's being able to communicate and also listen, and And I get why it can be hard sometimes to maybe be logical about everything, because at the end of the day, our
It
art
is
is
still
very
creative. Yeah.
emotional.
Yeah.
Being a creative, as you know as well, you put your heart and your soul into something because it's something that you're conceiving out of thin air. You become proud of your work, but you also need to be able to have that space within you to allow a little bit of recropping, so to
Right.
speak. I mean, you can water your grass one particular way, but if you allow somebody in, maybe that person could be teaching you a better way to fertilize that lawn, and water it in a different way and different technique.
Yeah, you definitely learn a lot of things when you keep things open and your mind open and open to criticism. I just expect things to have tons of notes and edits and them just scrapping the whole thing. I'm actually really surprised if I ever send something to someone, they're like, "Oh, that's awesome!" Like, okay, cool,
Yeah, right.
great. I'm glad that you did not fight me on this. But
Yeah.
but yeah, man, no, that's cool, and you've obviously got a good grasp on both of those because we've even had conversations about music that we've done too, where like we both have certain ideas on things and we just come to a compromise because at the end of the day, it's whatever's going to serve the project the best and things that we do. So, but yeah, so you're working on pop, country, hip hop. You're working on rock and metal too. Um, would you say there's like a bread and butter thing for you in terms of production, what you really love and you think you excel at the most, or do you try to keep a mixed bag of everything?
I try to keep a mixed bag of everything, man, because that's the beautiful thing about music. It is endless. You can express yourself musically in so many ways. And now, had you talked to me 10 years ago about this, I would have
Metal,
probably had a
metal.
different, yeah, it's all metal all the way, baby.
But then John found girls. And then
Yes.
he stopped listening to metal because girls don't like metal. No, I'm just
Yeah,
kidding.
I grew up, man.
Yeah.
I grew up.
No, I was pretty hardcore metal minded. Like I learned playing
Mhm.
like Lamb of God and Cannibal Corpse and In Flames and all kinds of
Yeah.
like musically technical stuff. But the older I get, especially when I started to learn how to sing,
Mhm.
actual singing besides like screaming obviously sticks with metal. But now that I've learned how to sing, I really enjoy the thought process behind pop, country, R&B, all that stuff because you do have to think more commercially and intently about how you're doing things. And with singing, it's very vulnerable. I mean, you do one note wrong, everyone could tell. You don't have to be musical to hear a bad singer. It's pretty obvious.
Yeah.
But no, it is interesting as you age and evolve, and especially if you're going to do stuff like commercially or things with bands that are bigger bands that have bigger budgets, the higher up you go, it's the less metal and rock is in that top category. So you're going to be working with budgets that are for pop and for country because they're going to get radio play and touring and all that stuff. But yeah, man, no, I mean, keeping it open is always cool because then you always can then brush up on things that you might not have done. You might not have done this genre in like 4 years,
Absolutely.
but then it like
Yeah.
reinvigorates that love for that specific style.
And again, and
music.
there's crossovers. We were just talking about crossovers, recently about how, certain genres. I mean, what even is the genre anymore? But it's kind of the same thing with the creative process too, where I feel like a lot of my knowledge in metal, I've been able to inject even into my pop productions, and vice versa. A lot of the things that I've learned in pop.
Putting pop sensibility into metal is definitely very helpful
Yeah.
for it being listenable and replayable.
Absolutely. And ultimately you want to create a song that people can sing, because people want something to sing. Even people who are not consciously knowledgeable on what music theory is and all those things, specifically if you win them over, if they can hum or whistle or sing
It's
what you're
stuck in their
creating,
head.
that's it. That's what the creation of music is all about. I mean, yeah, sure, you create something you're passionate about, obviously too, but if you are entering the realm of production, especially commercial production, that is the pursuit, is being able to create a piece of music that everybody can sing for a long time. Look at Beyonce's new cut right now, that Texas Hold'em, thing, which my buddy Killer B in LA produced, and like that's a song that everybody, whether you love it or you hate it, I
It's
have
catchy.
heard, dude, I have heard people that hate that song. They have thrown so much shade at it, and I've heard them whistling the song. That's it right there. Game
Yeah,
over.
the melody is just super
Yeah.
catchy.
Yeah, and that's kind of like the science behind, making things catchy. That's why, legendary writers like Max Martin are who they are, and all that stuff, because there is a certain formula, even to how you write lyrics and things like that. There's actually a song from Katy Perry. Which one was it? California Girls. Like if you listen to the verse, da 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 da, and he repeats it twice. and then he changes a couple notes for the next section and repeats it twice again. Those are things, those are seeds that you're planting in people's
Mhm.
brains. And then by the time the
Then
second verse
you
comes
can
through,
anticipate when it comes back through, and then you're like, oh, I got it now.
that's it. I can sing it. Even
Right.
if I don't know the lyrics yet, now I can hum it. That's the science of a catchy song. So as a producer, I love learning those things as I go, especially working with people in pop.
There's a lot of psychological stuff that goes into that pop
Yeah.
country rap.
And it is not easy. It is not easy to produce a good hip hop track or a good pop track. In many cases, for me personally, it's a
It's
lot
way
easier
harder.
to produce some very intricate piece of metal like music or progressive, or you're even composing something orchestral like
Well,
arranging
yeah, because you're going
strings.
from the people's music to musicians' music.
Exactly, to what I know I'm comfortable with. It's a lot harder sometimes for me to create pop because I have to, I don't want to say dumb down, but really simplify the
Well,
way that
yeah,
I
you
look
have
at things.
you have to make sure that your grandma can listen to it,
Yeah.
someone whose English is their second language can understand it,
Yeah.
a kid, someone who's in their third. Like you have to cover every
Yeah.
spectrum of person.
Most people don't want to eat the gristle and the steak, you know? So
Yeah.
it's like you gotta trim that and give them
Right.
the filet mignon, brother.
The good meat. Well, brother, we're running close on time here. So we've got the new private studio being built, and you're going to be started accepting clients both locally, and you can do remote work too. or-
Absolutely. Yeah. I offer all kinds of stuff. I mean, locally is great if you want to get the vibe of the room, but remotely, I do remote work all the time, especially for clients in Nashville, you know, and beyond. So I can pretty much do it all. Anything with the exception of tracking real drums here,
Yeah.
because I just don't have the space, but pretty much anything
Yeah,
else I
access
can
to
provide. And
studios
do.
you can go to if you need.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
yeah, that's your camera right there. Feel free to plug your socials and whatever else you got going on.
So again, my name is John Souki, and I will spell out my last name just so it doesn't confuse anybody. It is Souki. You can find me on Instagram. I am currently working on my website that should be out and live here pretty soon. But if you want any work on the creative realm, or even just session work like guitar tracks or editing or anything like that, if you want to come over and produce, or you want to do anything via Zoom or whatever, I am your guy. So hit me up on Instagram. That is my main platform that I'm the
At
most
John
active in.
Souki.
Yep, at John Souki. So JohnSouki. Find me there. You can keep up with all my pursuits on the road as well. And yeah, I look forward to meeting each and every one of you, man. So let's make it happen.
Cool. This has been Risky Stays with John Souki and me through 45 Creations. Peace.
Peace, y'all.